So I have this short film, and it's like, all right, cool, short film feels good. So yeah, let's turn it into a feature. Well, if you're gonna turn something into a feature, it's a host of problems. First of all, it's gotta be longer. You know, I have like 25 pages that I'd written. Well, feature's gotta be 100 pages. So I have to come up with what's gonna happen. And the million of iterations that I went through in my brain as I was shooting it and changing and writing and blah, blah, blah. So that was like a giant challenge. Also, it was my third feature, and my first feature was garbage. And everyone who makes their first feature knows you want it to be the next Reservoir Dogs. Well, mine was not. I learned a lot from that. My second feature was called Going Around, which Wyatt was also in.
Devil's Playground.
Amazing in that.
Best drummer ever.
We had zero script, situational improv. So it was like this giant Curb Your Enthusiasm episode in a way.
I acknowledge you. I connect with you.
And then we relied on our editing. Me and James Roddy, shout out to James Roddy. So if I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole of another feature film, I wanna make sure at least it's an evolution. So that requires not only a bigger story, but also it's gonna require bigger locations. You can't just be hanging out in Azusa the whole time. Plus at this point, COVID's still lingering, it's kinda open, kinda closed. Not only that, now I have to make sure the actors are gonna be on board.
You're right.
Fuck it, into the wild, you know?
And it's gonna take a while. I can't do this right away. I have to like pay for it. Even though I'm doing it for super cheap, still having to pay for hotels, I'm having to pay for gas to go places, I gotta feed people, or any crew that I have to bring along, I have to pay them. Even though it's not a lot, but like for one person, it kind of adds up. So I'm having to like work to make money, to be able to finish this thing. And other things, for instance, when we did the short film, that's all it was supposed to be. So Inya has this outfit in there. When we're done with the short film, she goes back home to Slovenia and she just tosses away because it's like, well, movie's done, don't need this anymore. Now she's got to wear this thing throughout the whole movie. So again, Craigslist coming through. I found somebody, Mickey Tron, and she just like, she recreated the whole thing. Then Inya ends up moving back to Slovenia, which means now it's gonna be really challenging. But right before she moves, I'm like, all right, let's get a bunch of stuff with her and let's adjust the movie a little bit so it's not only about him, it's about him and her. And it's these twin engines of exploration. He is representing skepticism, she is representing wonder. And we're showing a film about exploring, but we're doing it from two different sides. So before she goes back home, she and I shoot for like 5 days. And it's awesome. Like we had such a great time just out there in the wilderness.
Mazda commercial.
Part of it was Azusa, then we also went to Mount Baldy. One day we were trying to get snow, and it was a great scene, it worked out, but in order to get it, it was such a pain in the butt because it was like the end of the snowy season, so the snow is super icy. At one point, I flew backwards, dropped the whole camera rig, broke half of it, like messed up the battery holder, all these things. And another point, we're trying to get this like very intimate scene, and we got like this mom behind us who's like, hey, are you guys done? Because my kids haven't seen snow and I want to let them see snow for the first time. So we have to kind of like hurry up, and we had thrown blood on the snow. I feel bad for these kids. Then the other thing that happens is I have this drone, this old school DJI Phantom. I don't really know how to fly it very well, and I'm flying it. I wanted to get a nice overhead shot of her walking, and I remember thinking like, oh, that's cool as long as I avoid this tree. And so I guess I must have just been staring at the tree way too much, and it flew directly into the tree. The whole drone comes flying all the way down, blah, 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 lands to the ground. It's still working, it's still on. Zzz. And Inya, she's such a badass.
Nothing destroys me.
She just like grabs it by the handle and it's still like buzzing, trying not to cut her. And she's like, turn it off, turn it off. And I'm like, well, I can't turn it off. You have the thing, you have to push the button, you gotta have to turn it off. She just finally ends up having to walk it through this like icy snow all the way over to me, trying not to slip and fall until I'm able to grab it and shut it off. So that was the end of that drone. I had to get a new drone for later on. She and I, we were able to get a lot of her story, and we're able to beef up the film, and we're starting to get it to a point where I'm able to watch it and show it to a couple people. It's still short, it's like 65 minutes. I was just experimenting with stuff. At one point I was like, okay, no music. I'm not gonna have any music. It's just gonna be all totally natural. We're gonna go into it that way. and I brought over a buddy and he watches it. Shout out to him because he cares about me. He wants me to succeed. And he watched this thing and he's like, yeah, man, I checked out. I couldn't even watch it after like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh wow, that hurts. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to really dive into this. And I was able to like separate myself a little bit from the movie and look at it for what it is and just be like, well, this is fun. I could like play around. It's no longer like JJ personal movie. It's like, this is a horror movie. Let's let it be what it's supposed to be. Anya leaves. She's now back home in Slovenia. I don't have a whole movie, so I have to like keep writing the thing, keep figuring out what it is supposed to be. And then in the meantime, I bought a motorcycle and was like, let me go explore. Really what I wanted to do is I wanted to get to this place I found out. It's called the California Catacombs. And I wanted to go up to Redding. Started in Bakersfield, my hometown. Went up to the Sequoia National Forest, then into Kings Canyon. I saw the biggest trees in the world, which are the Grand Sequoias. Then I saw the tallest trees in the world in Humboldt. You know, I had put up a tent that attached to my motorcycle and I just cruised up along California and even went up into Oregon. Finally get kind of close to Redding, but it's fire season. I just remember riding on the motorcycle close to dark. It's like super smoky all of a sudden. Stopped at a fire station. I was like, hey guys, like, is this cool to drive through? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Just watch out for the cows. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I just like drove through this like insanely ashy road to get to the hotel that I was staying at. You just never know. That's also what I was trying to capture in the movies. What's cool about exploring is the danger element to it. You're pushing through a place that you do not know what it is. And it's exciting and it's scary, and that mixture is thrilling, and that keeps your heart racing and what makes every step enjoyable and made that 1 hour ride feel like 10 hours. Go up there, it's a national park. I go in there and I say, cool, what about the California Catacombs? She gave me this look and then she goes into her drawer and like pulls out this Zelda map that has like all these different caves like going from here to there. And she's basically like, you know, be really careful if you go into this place. Just stay to the right. So I go into this cave. Sketchy. Pitch black, you have a little headlight on. So I go to the right, stick to the right, and then I see these two girls. And they're like, oh, there's this cool ladder over there. And I'm like, where? Like, oh, it's just that way to the left. I got totally lost. I had a meltdown, like panic attack. Nobody's in there. I didn't bring anything. I had like a little bit of water, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know. I was like, I'm gonna die in this place. And then I start to try to like get my way out of there and kind of remember where I was. Finally, I see a flashlight and it was just another dude coming in. That shit was scary. And then I ended up writing a scene that embodied that feeling of just completely being lost in a cave. And that's like one of my favorite scenes in the film. I mean, the amount of jaw-dropping moments I had on that ride. Meanwhile, time is passing, and then I was getting really antsy about trying to shoot it, trying to finish it, and I'm, you know, waiting around, and then I get the biggest bomb dropped on me of the whole movie.